Martin Valgaivole, Rene Chahashaw, agus fáilte arás gan channel, Nyomaha Ur, fáilte gan channel. Good morning everyone, I'm Rachel, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome to my channel, and this is the second installment of my new section, which is Rernich answers Quora's questions about Gaelic. And today's questions still come from the Quora category Gaelic, which is Gaelic. So I don't know if the people asking it pronouncing it Gaelic. So, question and G, the first question today. Why is Irish Gaelic just Irish, but Scottish Gaelic isn't Scottish? And this comes from the fact that a lot of Irish speakers prefer you to, when you're speaking English, refer to their language as Irish, whereas Gaelic speakers prefer you to call it Gaelic. What you absolutely shouldn't do is refer to either of specific language as Gaelic, because that will upset both lots of people. As I mentioned in the last video, that is more a category that includes the three Gaelic languages, but it's not used to refer specifically to any of them, which, as I keep saying, Irish, Manx, and Gaelic, or Scottish Gaelic. As for why, it basically comes down to the fact that Scotland isn't a single culture. It never was a single culture. There, it was Gaels and Picts, and then it was Gaels and Lowland Scots. And Scots are a Germanic people group, Anglo-Saxons, same as the English. And they speak a language which is called Scots, which is a Germanic language very closely related to English. So basically, because that language is called Scots, it would be very, very confusing to have a language called Scots and a language called Scottish. So we just use Gaelic, which is basically the Gaelic pronunciation of the name of the language. Yeah, that's basically why it's not called Scottish, because that would be confusing, because then you would have Scottish, Scottish English, and Scots. Three completely different languages, and Scots and Gaelic are not the same language. Kesh. What do the Scots think of Scottish Gaelic? Now, I presume that here Scots means Scottish people in general. Now, this is a difficult question for me to answer because I'm obviously not Scottish. I mean, I'm a British citizen, my family's from Scotland, but I'm born and raised in Australia, so I can't really speak to what people in Scotland think of the language, other than my experiences of what I've seen them saying online, Twitter, Facebook, and also lowlands immigrants in Australia that I have to deal with. So basically, as you might have worked out from my facial expressions, their opinion of Gaelic is not good. Like, so I present, if you don't know, I present a bilingual English-Gaelic radio show in Australia. And I've had people, Lowland Scots immigrants, in the local area, phone into my programs to tell me not to speak that foreign language. There's no audience for it here. It's dead. You shouldn't be speaking it. I've had people come up to me and say that to my face. Again, Lowland Scots from Glasgow, they're from the borders, come up and say this to me to my face. I've had people tell me that I'm not Scottish, I'm not culturally Scottish, I shouldn't be here where something is, say, a Scottish cultural event occurring in Australia because I speak Gaelic. Purely because I speak Gaelic. If I didn't speak Gaelic and I was coming along as someone with this accent, growing up in a place where this accent is spoken with a parent from Scotland and going along to this event, they would have no problem with me. But the fact that I'm there open about the fact that I speak Gaelic, I get a lot of hate. And this is me living in Australia, so I can only imagine the shit that people who live in Scotland and speak Gaelic who come from Gaelic speaking areas, come from Gaelic speaking families, come from Gaelic speaking communities, have to deal with from other Scottish people. You know, and I see it on Twitter every time there's a new road sign with a bit of Gaelic in it, which, you know, they're not tearing down road signs and replacing them with bilingual signs for the fun of it. When the signs need replacing, they're replaced with bilingual signs. When the police cars need replacing, they're replaced with police cars with bilingual signage. It's no expense to the taxpayer that wouldn't be needed anyway. But any time something like that happens, you get people on Twitter speaking absolute. I probably shouldn't say shit again on this channel. I might get. I was going to say I might get demonetized. I'm not monetized anyway, but like I might get taken down or something. People's like absolute vile hate that's not based in anything except pure xenophobia for a language that they can't understand. And I don't know, maybe there's some sort of self-hatred there or cringe because maybe they realise that this is the heritage language of Scotland, and it's a huge part of Scottish culture, and maybe they're ashamed that they don't speak it themselves. I don't know what's going through their head, um, but yeah, it's not good, and this is part of the reason, as I was saying in my last video, there's a lot of sociological pressures being put on Gaelic that's making it hard for Gaelic to survive as a community language. This is one of them, just like the pure hatred that people have to deal with for the fact that they speak Gaelic, or even if they're not open about the fact that they speak Gaelic around, you know, people that don't also speak Gaelic, and then have to deal with someone going on, starting off about this sort of stuff about how it's a stupid language and how it's a drain on the taxpayer and how it's a foreign language and all this sort of stuff, like just pure hatred that doesn't even make sense in my head. And I hope it's just a minority. I hope that this is like 5% of Scotland and the other, you know, 93% that doesn't speak Gaelic and doesn't have this opinion are either like just don't care one way or another or are supportive of the people who do speak the language and supportive of them trying to maintain it. But unfortunately, the people who hate it are very loud. And this has turned into quite a long ranting answer to the question, and it may well be that someone from Scotland would have a different take on this. But this is again why I say don't go looking up Gaelic on Quora, because you get questions. You get a question like this, which is obviously being asked by a non-Scottish person, probably in very good faith, and you get absolutely vile answers to it that are all the sort of stuff that I've just been saying. So, yeah, I will leave that there. I'll leave that there and move on to the next question that I found, which is, what are we up to? Question three. Question three. How does Irish Gaelic sound to you? Now, again, Irish speakers prefer, many of them, that you would call their language just Irish and not Irish Gaelic. And my answer, as a Scottish Gaelic speaker, is that it very much depends on the speaker of Irish and where they're from and how they learnt it. And now I'm going to like broadly stereotype, and people will be nasty in the comments and hate on me for my broad stereotyping. I do not like how what I'm going to call learner Irish sounds, or Gael Scottish. I'm not sure what how Irish speakers would refer to this pronunciation. Basically, I would say, and a lot of these people are native speakers now because they have parents who learnt it as a second language, but broadly speaking, these are not native speakers. They've learnt it in school. Usually, they've learnt it in school in an area that's not Irish speaking. I hesitate to say the word Dublin, but it just, to me, sounds like being hit over the head with a blunt force instrument. They hit all their consonants very hard, they don't tend to distinguish broad and slender quite as much as I would expect. This is, if I'm going to misunderstand an Irish speaker, it's because they speak this variety of Irish and they're not differentiating their broad and slenders really. Um, and they tend to use a lot of English structures in their Irish, which personally I don't like. But as I say, a number of these people these days are native speakers, and it is a useful way for them to communicate. There are whole communities of people now in urban Ireland speaking like this. So, I can't hate on it as a language form, it's doing its job. But personally, yeah, nails on a chalkboard. I like it. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of Irish speakers around me in Australia sound. So um, that's why I sort of come and go from the Irish speaking community here. It just depends on my ability to tolerate the way they sound. Um, that said, we have some native Irish speakers around where I live from Inishmore and Inisheer, and I love the way their Irish sounds. Like, they've got all the broad and slender distinctions. It sounds quite different from Scottish Gaelic, but I don't know. I like the way that sounds. It's sort of like soft and up and down, and they've got all the different sounds that I would expect. I would say a little wispier than the Scottish that I was referring to. Um, yeah, not much to say there really. It's like I can definitely instantly it's Irish. I'm not ever going to mistake it for Gaelic, but like it's a pretty cool accent. Um, Further south, Munster, I know speakers from Cork, and I struggle with Munster Irish to understand it. Um, I've heard that the phonology is actually fairly close to Scottish Gaelic. I don't know if that's just Munster Irish people saying that. But their prosody is quite different. They very often put their stress on the final syllable, which we never do in Scottish Gaelic, and that impedes in a huge way my ability to understand them. Um, yeah, what does that sound like to me? I don't know. It just sounds like they're putting the stress on a different syllable, and I can't understand them. Uh, and there's Donegal Irish. Now, Donegal Irish is often one that people say if you speak Scottish Gaelic, that'll be easier for you to understand. But I didn't encounter a Donegal Irish speaker until a number of years after I'd started hanging around with Irish speakers, so I was fairly familiar with how Caedón Irish sounds and grammar and vocab and stuff at that point. So Donegal Irish was a bit of a change of pace. Very, I would say cute. Sounds to me cute. Um, it's the dropping off the ends of the words all over the place and make everything sound much more slender than it is. Um, it took a while to tune into the accent, but when I did, a lot of their grammar and vocabulary was much more familiar to me than other Irish speakers. So, I mean, that in itself is true, but yeah, I would say Donegal Irish sounds cute to me. So yeah, that's what Irish Gaelic sounds like to me. I'd sort of be interested to know other people's opinions. Or not. Don't hate on me for the way I hear sort of Gaelish, Caedón, Irish. I know that was probably a controversial opinion. Oops. Uh, so yeah, I'm almost at 15 minutes of this video. And I'll finish there. I think that was only 3 questions this time, but yeah, that's all I have for you today. Tune in next month for another episode of Learn Answers Quora's Questions. And of course, new videos every week. And there's a number of different sorts of video I upload. Some are lessons, some are reading books, some are telling you how to say common phrases. Some are just straight up uploading my radio programs. So yeah, there's a new video every week. agus fiúrionn drás agus cíimi se bhfuil a bheithige.